Good morning. See how many are on here on a Friday. It's Friday, August 21st. So officially 3 weeks into the month of August. Is there 30 or 31 days? 31 days in August, so 10 more days of August. And we're into the month of September. Good morning, Miss Joyce, Julie, Becky, Andy. Ladies, don't forget, if you can get there, it's the ladies' Bible study and luncheon today at 11 to 1. So I always like to see, because I like to see lots of ladies at that, because the more women that come, the more food there is. So so anyway, good to see everybody on here today. So all right. Oh man, I keep trying to. All right. Do you guys remember the word thanatophobia? Thanatophobia. That is the fear of death. Thanatophobia. So that's our word of the week, right? Oh, it's Friday. Man, I forgot my mask, didn't I? I was working on that last night, trying to think of something, and then I totally spaced it out this morning. So sorry guys, no face mask Friday. So we will try to do something differently. I don't know. We'll see what we can do next week. But anyway, so we're moving on into have moved into Job, and I also find it interesting that I read an article this morning that some evangelical group, whatever that means, I don't, that includes probably every cult in the country, along with true Bible believers, but 2,700 of these evangelicals have signed some paper that is scolding churches to stop politicizing the coronavirus, and when the vaccine comes out, take the vaccine. And we'll just let those 2,700 evangelicals take the vaccine, and I will go without, and somebody else can have it. Anyway, we'll get moving on. And I read in Proverbs today, and I think it definitely kind of goes with our country today. And I don't know if you guys have been out and about trying to purchase things, but you talked about this corona junk has definitely put us into a socialistic country already, but it's almost like third world in some things. I mean, I know they still have them in like Cabela's and Bass Pro and stuff, but go into some, like a Walmart, or we were in some other store out in Indianapolis, not a Walmart, but something kind of like a Myers, I think it's called. And that's where I noticed it. And then, like, Wes was here in our Walmart here the other day, and go try to buy a fishing pole in one of these places. I mean, there is like nothing. The shelves are empty when it comes to fishing poles. It's crazy. People are trying to get outside because there's nothing else to do, and now the lakes out here are drying up, and not going to be able to fish those, and the timbers are burning, and I mean, it's just crazy, and all these empty shelves of stuff, and then when the toilet paper was gone, and we keep trying to get Lysol wipes and stuff like that for the church, and good luck, trying to find that kind of stuff. And it's just crazy what. And then we're working on building a deck here, just a small deck, and we went to buy some treated lumber. You can't buy any, and there's a shortage of the treated lumber, because I was talking to a guy that's builds steel buildings, and he said that those factories that do the treated stuff, when Rona hit, they all go on furlough. And so now they're calling them back from furlough, and they're not coming back because they can actually make more money on welfare or on their unemployment than they were making working. And so there's a bunch of them that's like, yeah, sorry, we're not coming back. We're just going to keep getting what we get. And it's put a shortage in everything. In new vehicles, I mean, there's a shortage on new vehicles in trying to find those. And I mean, it's a crazy day, isn't it? So I read these two verses this morning, and this is what sparked my, thoughts on our society. But in Proverbs 21, verses 25 and 26, the desire of the slothful killeth him, for his hands refuse to labor. And then he coveteth greedily all the day long. So here he is, he's slothful, and his desire, his lust, his covetousness, his appetite, all of these things, they're killing him, and because he wants all of these things, but he's just afraid to or not afraid, but he just refuses to labor and to work. And so, Katie, that's good. So self-preservation, you're right. Anything with self-preservation is gone, isn't it? I mean, freezers, we were in the appliance store the other day. He said, you can't get a freezer. I mean, everybody's bought up the freezers. I saw Katie was saying the other day that canning stuff, jars and lids and stuff like that, you can't get those. And man, I don't know. I mean, it's a crazy day, isn't it? And here we see, he coveteth greedily all the day long, but the righteous giveth and spareth not. And so here's the ones that covet. Here's the ones that are, honestly, they're lazy and they refuse to labor. And so they're going to get everything they can for free and not have to do anything for it. And it truly is killing them. And we need to understand that if we ever think that the government is just going to take care of us, it'll kill you. I mean, it's just, they'll rule your life, and then they'll decide when you live, when you die. I mean, it's, the prophets of Baal that just finished up their convention last night, they would love for you to think that and to rely on the government. And so anyway, we that's our society today. But it says, but the righteous giveth and spareth not. I do love that, God has called us as believers to be part of that family of God, and that's through our churches. And I just know that if we as a church body in wherever you are, you need to be hooked into a good local church somewhere, but that is a family, and you just help take care of each other. And it's not socialistic in that, it's biblical in the things that we ought to be doing. And, I find this interesting too. I'm reading this book about the Pilgrims, and they learned this lesson long ago, that Proverbs 21, 25, and 26. But when they first came over, I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but they set up a community store. And so whatever they grew, whatever they raised and killed or whatever, to eat, they would bring this stuff to the store, the community store. And they would share it with everyone, because they said, hey, this is the biblical thing to do. We need to help each other out and do that. And that's good. I mean, we do give, right? That's what the scripture said there in the last part of verse 26. However, you know what they learned? They learned that there were some of them doing all the work. I mean, they were raising the gardens, they were slaughtering the animals, they were preserving the meat, there was a number of them doing this, and there was a number of them that just sat at home and did absolutely nothing. And so it didn't take them very long where they shut down the community store. You got to go back and read this in the history books. And they shut down the community stores, and they went on the principle that's Paul taught the Thessalonians: you don't work, you don't eat. And that's really how our country has survived ever since then. And it has that helped form the Constitution that we have, and that helped form the whole attitude of our country, where you didn't come here to be taken care of. You came here with a pioneering spirit and an entrepreneurial mindset to go out and to make things what you want it to be. And they wrote the Constitution to protect that, so that you could go out and do those things. And along with that you could come here and worship God freely. And it wasn't a state-run church or some organization, but it was the freedom to worship God as your conscience and as your conviction guides you to do that. And it is all biblical. And so that's why our country has been as great as it's been. And people are hating that and wanting to change it. And all it's going to do is make people, it already is making people lazy and worthless. I mean, I know of every employer in our church has a struggle hiring people that will work. And now in this drug-infested state, you can't even hire someone. You can't hardly find someone that can pass a drug test any longer. And it just boggles my mind what's going on. And our government understands that, and they know that you get them hooked on the drugs, and then you got them hooked on trusting the government for everything, and then they'll have you right where they want you. That's why Polis, in all of his infinite wisdom as the illustrious potentate that he is, we see that he said that pot shops and liquor stores were essential, but no way is the church ever essential, because the church is teaching just what I'm teaching you here, that if you don't work, you don't eat, and you don't do drugs, and you don't do alcohol, and you live a righteous and holy life according to the righteousness of Christ in your life, and you get all that junk out of your life, and you don't get drunk and beat your wife and abuse your children, and you live a life where you understand you're the leader of the home, and you take care of your family, and you love your wife, and you love your children, and you don't depend on anybody but God, and the government's constantly pushing to become the God, and then you see the mess that we're in. So anyway, Proverbs 21, 25, and 26. Stay on that. But then we see back in Job, that's where I started this morning, is the book of Job. And here, I love how God described Job in verse 1. And it says that there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect. And perfect in the Old Testament means that all the pieces of his life matched, and they hooked together, and it made sense. So that's what perfect means. It doesn't mean perfect in the sense that we think of it today, without sin and perfect in all ways. But perfect means he was mature, that his faith, not only was it what he said, but it was what he did, and how he lived, how he treated others, how he raised his family, all of those things. So he was perfect, and he was upright. And upright meant that what he knew of God during this time, and they say that this is probably the oldest book in in the Bible, and so and I know I understand the Torah and all of that also. Okay, so and or the Pentateuch, or the five first books of the Bible. So Job is right there, early in the history of the creation of the world. So but anyway, so what Job did know of God, that he was upright, and he did what it was that God told him and wanted him to do, and he feared God. I mean, he might not have known much about him, but he feared him. And I'm not sure how things worked, if God spoke to him, or it doesn't say any of that until the end of the book, and then we see him come down and he actually speaks to Job. So, and he probably spoke to him earlier too, and he eschewed evil. He avoided it. He stayed away from those that were practicing evil and all of those things, and so he avoided those things. That was the characteristic of who Job is, and a good man. And but then it goes on, and it tells us that in verse 5, and it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. It just reminded me, I need to pray for my kids every day. I need to pray for my family every day. I need to make sure that if anything is neglected, my prayer life, especially for my family, is never neglected. And how I need to raise them up in prayer, and I need to put them there on that altar of God, and ask God to guide them, protect them, and keep them, healthy, and keep them strong in the faith, and walking as they should, and making intercession for them. I mean, I need to do that daily, and I need to love my family enough that I do that. And so was truly a reminder of that. And so then we get into the story, and I read the first 3 chapters here of Job, and just a couple of things I want to point out, and then we'll be done today. But here we see in verse 6, now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. So they'd stationed themselves in front of God, ready for service. And so these were the sons of God. When you see that phrase in the Old Testament, sons of God, that always seems to be referring to the angels. And now, I should be careful of saying always, but pretty much all the time in the Old Testament, the sons of God referred to angels. And so, and they came to present themselves and station themselves in front of God, get their marching orders and what it was that they needed to do. And it says that this time Satan came also among them. And remember, the word Satan means adversary. And so he was an adversary of God, and he wanted to become God and be like God. And we know that in Isaiah and also in Ezekiel. And we know that he had been a glorious angel at one time, and then had been cast to earth in his curse of crossing God. And so he comes and he presents himself before God and said, I've been looking and going over the earth, and the Lord said that, well, have you ever considered my servant Job? There's none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man that feareth God and escheweth evil. And so here's God's description of Job. And so I give thought to that. Okay, God, how do you describe me? How would he describe me? And you open your heart up to God and ask him to define those things. And am I one like what he would say that Job is? Am I perfect? And is my walk, all the puzzles fit together? And am I truly the real deal when it comes to a genuine faith? And do I show that? And am I one that's upright in my walk and in my dealings with others around? And do I fear God? And do I avoid evil? Do I walk away from those things that are evil and bad, and not mix up with those things? And here we see that he allows Satan to go in and impact Job and he told him, he said, you can do anything but touch Job. Don't be touching Job. And so he does. He goes in, and I mean, he wipes out everything that he had, all of his wealth. He took everything that for most people that meant anything to him, took away his family other than his wife. I mean, all those kids that he was praying for, and they all end up dying. And this is what Job said in verse 21, chapter 1. Naked came I out of my mother's womb, naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Jacob sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. And wow, we see, I read in my devotion this morning also, Oswald Chambers was talking about, blessed are the poor in spirit. And I believe that Job in chapter 1, verses 21 and 22 is the epitome of blessed are the poor in spirit. And he realized that, God, I have nothing. I mean, I truly am nothing. And it's not a self-esteem kind of deal that we're talking about. He just realizes that, God, I have nothing to offer you. Never have. Everything that I have has been by your grace, and it's been by your mercy. And my life is yours, my family is yours, my possessions are yours, and when I came into this world, I didn't have anything. When I go out of this world, I'm not going to have anything, and I don't have anything to present to you, Lord, and it's all by your grace, all by your mercy that I have anything. It's all by your grace, your mercy, that I'll be in your presence, and we know and understand that only comes through the Messiah. And so that truly is the epitome of a poor in spirit. And boy, do we need that. I mean, we can't think that we have something to offer God. And whatever we have to give to God, He's the one that gave it to us in the first place. And so we need to realize and understand the power that God has and on our lives, and how we just need to continue to trust Him. And well, then we go on and we see, he says, Lord, I'm nothing. And so God then says, you know what, let's just go ahead and let's test Job a little bit more. And so then he lets Satan affect his flesh and put boils all over his flesh. And even in this time, then his wife said unto him, dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. And here, what I love how when Satan came to God the second time to do these things to Job, this is how God described him the second time. He said that, is there none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil, just like he had described him earlier. But then he says, and still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou movest against him to destroy him without cause. And that word integrity is the same word that's used for perfect. And he said, in all the things that you did to him up here, he still stayed complete in his walk. His faith is the real deal. His faith really is genuine in what he's doing. And so now Satan says, you let me hit him on his own flesh, and he'll curse you. And it's to the point where he doesn't, to the point where it seems to make his wife mad, and she says, are you still going to retain your integrity? Curse God and die, and let it be done, and stop the suffering. And but we see that he doesn't. And then I just found this interesting because of the times we're living in. Verses 11 through 13 in chapter 2. Now when Job's three friends heard all this evil that was come upon him, they came every one and from his own place, and They had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him. When they lifted up their eyes afar off and knew him not, they didn't recognize him. They lifted up their voice and wept, and they rent one of his mantle and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. I mean, they were, wow, Job, you're a mess. And then it says, so they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great. Good thing, I don't know, my mind, but it's a good thing that they weren't told that Job had corona. Because if he had corona, then all of a sudden, Job's friends would have had to put masks on, and they'd had to sit down at least 6 feet away from each other. And, oh dear, I don't see any mask wearing, do you? But anyway, there's where my mind goes. I'm sorry, But, and here we see how impacted they were even to see what was going on in his life. And then we go on to chapter 3, and this came true to me. This came true to me when a few years ago when Tyler was diagnosed with cancer. And that's always been an issue with me. I watched, I guess I didn't get to watch her, but I would talk to my grandma daily when I was in Bible college. She was diagnosed with cancer, and she slowly dwindled away, and she ended up passing away. And praise the Lord, I'll see my grandma again in heaven one day. But it was horrible. I mean, it was just horrible to watch. And this is what Job said in chapter 3, verse 25. For the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me. I was not in safety, neither had I rest, neither was I quiet, yet trouble came. And I think that for the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me. I think that I know that many times that God's testings comes from some of our greatest fears. And I also know that a faith not tested is a faith not trusted. And so I do understand that every one of us at some point in time, as we grow, that our faith is going to be tested because God wants our faith to grow. And we need to trust him. And I can tell you that if God ever puts you in a time of testing, and you grow bitter towards God, and you grow angry towards what's going on in your life, then you're not passing the test. And sooner or later, your faith is going to be tested again. Because truly, a faith not tested is a faith not trusted. And that's in everyone's life. I mean, even as pastors, I try to tell the young guys that are coming into the ministry that you need to understand at some point in time you will be tested. And I believe every preacher has to go through this, to where we have to come to a point where we realize that we're not in it for the people. And don't take this wrongly, okay? We're in it because God's called us to be his servant in a special and particular way. And as we serve him, we serve people. But we're serving the people for his applause, not theirs. And until we get to the point where we totally trust him and stop trusting in the people, and don't take it wrongly, okay? Because people are always going to disappoint you. I'm going to disappoint people. I mean, that's just the fact of life. We're humans. And so we're always going to be disappointing each other because we fail and we have feet of clay, but God never fails, and God is always faithful, and God is always there. And so your faith isn't based upon what people do. I mean, look, man, I've seen people get mad and leave churches over some of the silliest things. If I acted like them, I'd never stay in a church ever. I mean, you'd be gone, and that's what happens, really. That's why so many churches are so unstable, is because the preacher just acts like a lot of the congregation. He gets upset, packs his bags and leaves and goes somewhere else. And you just can't do that. And you have to realize, I'm in this and I'm here until God moves me, and I'm here to serve him. And it's not to make everybody happy, and it's not for everybody to like me. It's just that I want God's applause, and I want God's blessings upon my life, and I need to obey him and trust him completely in all things. And in doing so, I serve the people. And when we can do that, when somebody disappoints you, you can still love them, because you wasn't in it for them. You're in it because you're serving God, and you realize that people are disappointing at times, and I'm grateful that those that I've disappointed that are still here, are still serving together, and we move on, and we understand that we make mistakes and bad choices at times, and we can still love each other, and so, but here we see the testings that come, and so don't be surprised in your life that, just as Job said, for the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me. I think it happens. And God wants you to that point where blessed are the poor in spirit, where you finally just say, it's all yours, God. I'm yours. Everything I have is yours, even my family, even these things that I greatly fear. It's all yours, and you just give it to him, and know that when you do that, then God can do something great in your life. And so blessed are the poor in spirit, and have the kind of character that Job had even when he was tested. And it's not fun. It's not. And I think a lot of times God lets us go through some of these horrifically hard times in our lives to help us to separate more so from the world, and just not let this world have a hold on us. And there's just nothing in this world to hang around for. And you say, well, what about our children? Well, I can tell you what you need to do with your children. You need to raise them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And you need to pray for them daily, and pray that they trust Christ early in life, and that they're prepared for eternity, so that one day they too will be in eternity in heaven with God. And that's where we're really going to see life truly begins in a wonderful way. And here's trials and testings, there is perfection. And until then, we just keep serving him, and let's trust him, and let's have the faith that's real and perfect and genuine and sincere. And don't let other people affect our faith or our walk. God's the one that does that. And all he ought to be doing is drawing us closer and closer to him, where we have more victory over sin in our lives, and truly enjoy our lives and enjoy the walk that we have with him. So anyway, I hope that's some good thoughts for a Friday. And hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and get to church on Sunday. Go serve him somewhere this Sunday. Worship him and encourage other believers. And Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll be back on here Monday. So God bless you guys.